Ani Bojo, Kaling Indishnikaz, Nindigo, Ajipme Wang, Ziguan, Wagosh, Manadu, Michigan and Durham, Anishinaabe, Nij, Manaduwag, Oshawa, and Dunjaba, Chimiquetch. My maternal grandmother's last name is Najwan. In Ojibwe, this means beautiful. In my great-uncle's words, not human beauty, but the beauty of nature. I have to agree, humanity can be ugly. Growing up as an Indigenous person in the suburbs, my culture was more or less absent. Although my mother was a social worker for abused Indigenous women and children for over 20 years, I grew up as a white kid. My name is Kaylee. In Scottish Gaelic, this means celebration. But I feel I have little to celebrate, existing in between somewhere and nowhere, white and brown, privileged and marginalized. My great-uncle was the same way, one white parent and one Indigenous parent. He called himself a half-breed, not wolf nor dog. I think this is a harsh way to think about yourself, but I still share his pain and confusion. I have pale skin, blue eyes, and brown hair. I do not speak my language, not fluently at least. I do not practice my traditional ways of life, but this is not my fault. Nor my parents, or grandparents, or great-grandparents. This is the fault of colonialism and forced assimilation. Because of this, I was always confused growing up. I looked like this, but had my aunt making me ribbon dresses. My middle name is Rose, while they gave my younger brother an Ojibwe middle name, Padaban, meaning first light. While my mother tried to get us to reconnect with our culture, my grandmother tried to take us to church. My entire life I have been assessing trauma, much of which stems from generations before me. 1. My mother was racially profiled at a clinic in Toronto which was founded by her uncle. 2. My grandmother received a letter from the Canadian government after she married my grandfather, who was a white man, whereby, according to the 1869 Enfranchisement Act, my grandmother and her children were no longer considered status Indians. This act was not reviewed until over 100 years later in 1985. 3. My great-uncles, aunts, and grandparents being emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically, and sexually abused in residential schools. 4. Their assimilation led them and their children and their children's children to become Christian and lose connection to their culture and language. 5. My great-uncle's sons fishing on the reserve and being arrested by the Ministry of Natural Resources in 1992. The Supreme Court charged them with $35,000. 6. My grandmother and her siblings all have different spellings of their last name, either Najwan with an O or with an A, due to the residential school system. Nuns did not care about correct spelling, and many of the children were not literate and did not speak English. And I carry all of this with me. They say it takes 7 generations to heal, but I fear that my people won't ever get that opportunity. And although my culture was stolen from me, I am slowly starting to find my way back. So when I shower, I sing the water song. When I am sick, I pick cedar and make tea with it. When I am overwhelmed, I smudge to ground myself, and I listen to my elders share stories to reconnect with my culture, even in the smallest of ways. So when people ask me, well, how Indigenous are you really? Or what percentage are you? I think that I have carried the burden of my ancestors long enough. I am Indigenous enough.